Hey, we're here with Hanson. Thanks for taking the time, guys. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
I've actually wanted to interview you for a really long time, probably 25 years.
Longer than we've been a band. We have been a band for 20 years this year.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
and what's incredible is the staying power. I mean, a lot of bands have that one big hit, huge worldwide hit, and then disappear because they can't sustain the expectation, right?
Well, it's a huge challenge for anyone, any artist.
Yeah.
I think for us, we could just never stop. I mean, it's there wasn't an option. There's never been an option to stop. I think
Mostly because we're not qualified to do anything else.
well, that's true. That's true. We love what we do, and we were kids when we started playing. I mean,
Yeah.
we were. I was 6 when we started the band.
Right.
And so it's sort of in our blood. It's something I think we're all addicted to. It's our drug of choice is being an artist that gets to sort of express yourself and share your perspective on the world through your music.
How tough has those 20 years been? I mean, there was fallout with the record label, right, in between, like, 5 years ago where you had some tough...
10 years ago almost,
10
actually.
years? Really?
Almost 10 years ago now, yeah.
I mean, how has it been? How have you guys been able to sustain a career doing this stuff with so much nonsense going? I mean, iTunes and Napster and all of that junk too. Like,
No,
it's
you're
crazy.
right.
It's an interesting question about survival because, when we first came out, it really was the very last breath of one industry,
Right.
of an era.
Yeah.
It was that album was kind of the last year and a half, before 1999, which is the huge big merger, the biggest merger in history at the time.
Right.
Happened, and it started to change all the digital stuff. The truth is, it's a little bit of luck, a little bit of divine intervention and stubbornness, I think.
Yeah.
And I think you just with our approach to things, whether it's the reason you have staying power or not, or even is we have focused on what we do first and foremost. We
Right.
really have always said, look, we're here to do music. We're here to focus on the craft. And even just as young businessmen and starting a record company, when we chose to be our own label, we had a really defined purpose. And part of it was kind of deciding what success was.
Right.
Actually defining success means this. Success means we pay our bills.
Right.
It means we have a strong fan base all over the world that we can go back to. It doesn't necessarily mean a hit song every year, but it means that we are completely independent in the truest sense of the words. We're actually independent of the fear of, that didn't happen. It wasn't the number one video on MTV, or
Right.
And so I think the independent spirit, to some degree, I think has been a huge strengthening thing for our group, and also just the relationship with the fan base.
Right.
I mean, really saying like, look, our strength is starts with the most passionate, the people that are really gung ho, the ones that are waiting at HMV right now, that have been there since 2 a.m. last night.
Right.
The fans that want to go onto the forums and talk to one another and build a community about what they like, and then. Beyond that stuff, you just don't really know. You just don't have any. You don't have control.
It's kind of like you've built your own industry around this band, right?
Yeah, you have. I mean, we chose early on to like be our own little workshop.
Right.
We have our own little group of elves in the workshop. and in a very literal sense, we actually have moved more and more towards this idea of. We're a brand. Like we're a lifestyle, and even if it's even if you're speaking to a sort of niche group of people that are really highly engaged, it allows you to take that idea and that spirit of your group and of your culture, and then kind of sustain yourself, and then gives you a shot to keep swinging, to keep swinging at the
Another way to say it
pitches.
too is that one of the things that we did recently with the release of Shout It Out when it first came out in the U.S. We did these specialized packages where we offered up a customized painting for a very select group of people. There were 113 of them done. Taylor, Zach, and I did paintings. We also had customized record players and things like that. And really what that allowed for us to do is explore other parts of our artistic kind of desires.
Right.
And in a way, a lot of what we've decided to do was say, wait a second, we're musicians and we're artists, but also there are other ways that we can express ourselves and other ways that we can invite our fan base into the kind of our creative process and our creative desires and facilitate the hopefully the future of being this band.
Is it kind of crazy that your fans now range in age from how old you were when you started in this
Right.
band to 35-year-olds who are just, or even older, who are just really into your music? Is that crazy to look out over the stage and see the?
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy to look out at the stage and see faces you recognize that were 12,
Right.
And now are 30.
Right.
And to see that, though it's always what you desire, you desire the music to sort of appeal to young and old, and not really be defined by where you are at this moment in your life, but sort of live beyond that. I think that's what great music does. But when you actually get to see little bits of that, where you see, wow, there's a 8-year-old or a 12-year-old, and there's a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old, and they're both at the same concert, you know what I mean? And they're both singing the same song. That's pretty cool. It's sort of seeing, I don't know, as cheesy as it sounds, it's sort of seeing your dreams realized, seeing the things you hope for realized in a moment. You go, wow.
I mean, it is, again, part of the whole thing is, it's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to actually like pull it together.
Right.
But there is a certain amount of deciding kind of what you want to be, and the people we look up to, I mean, we can still continue to look up to are artists that when you do go to their concerts now, whether it's Tom Petty or Bruce Springsteen or even Paul McCartney, or icons that have had real careers, really have had album after album and eras of change. You see the 6-year-old, and then you see the 8-year-old,
right,
who has a completely different perspective.
Right.
And to us, like, it's always been funny growing up in a post-1980s gluttonous hair metal rock phase where everybody's like, "You're in a rock band. Don't you have sex with goats?" It's like, well, actually,
these 3 women at the same time.
like, we didn't think that was part of the equation. Actually,
Yeah.
we thought we were, we looked up to Elvis and the Beach Boys and the Beatles and even the Rolling Stones, and sure, there's been rock and roll antics and craziness that goes on around the whole lifestyle, but like. We really have always
say Keith Moon.
Yeah, we've always imagined that picture. We've always imagined that, not in a cheesy way, but like that a great career is that you go to a show and you see this kind of bizarre collection of different people, because a good song, especially a pop song, is something that is kind of amorphous. It kind of takes, people grab it and they make it their own, and they live with it, and that's the job. So
great segue into a pop song, because there aren't a lot of people that can write great pop music, and you guys have been able to write great pop songs for a really long time. Is that process changed for you over time, or is it still about writing a great melody and a great hook, or what?
We go. I mean, sorry to jump in.
No, yeah.
I mean, to me, you go back to the same gut feeling, and ultimately, like, if you're not really like swinging for the fences on it, then the song's going to sound that way.
Right.
I mean, and the one thing that is different as you go forward is you do learn your craft. It's like a carpenter. You do know
a little easier.
You know how to make a chair,
Right.
and you know how to make a bench. You really you know what the when the mechanics of it are.
Right.
And as a craftsman, you know better how to get there. But it still goes back to a feeling. I mean, you kind of have this constant comparison to the great songs that some of which you believe you've written because you feel like you're proud of your music, and
right.
then also to others, and you go, okay, like, does this stand up? One of the great examples I can think of is Tom Petty talking about a hit song, like talking about a great pop song, and talking about how if you have written a great pop song, a song that is just, then if you go into the studio and you solo the drum track, the bass track, the guitar, the lead vocal, it should feel like, what is that? Like,
right.
And
every single part,
every piece should kind of tell you this is something special. So I think that hasn't changed. Like, our desire hasn't changed.
So all 12 tracks on Shout It Out are like that? They're all gems?
Well,
the drum track?
There's not a dud on there. I mean,
right.
I'm not saying, you don't say that in a cocky way, but we try to make records that don't have filler in them.
Right.
I mean, every song is not necessarily the single song, because there is a place for the song that you love that is an album track.
Right.
But there should never be, we never want to make an album where you skip through 5 to get to the, you always want to make albums that people go, oh, I love this song. Oh, wait, I'm going to skip to the next one I love. Oh, no, wait, I love this one. I mean,
We've tried really hard over the years to not phone in the lyrics, to not phone in things, because you want to make sure that everything is, the best version of that song it can possibly be. Again, it is up to the audience and it's up to others to kind of ultimately, on some level or another, kind of figure out whether or not you really hit it out of the park or not. But for the most part, I mean, we certainly have tried to be extremely critical of ourselves, and Taylor, Zach, and I are critical of one another in that way. And I think that at least in the beginning, you definitely hold each other to the fire a little bit and go, I don't know, I think you can push that a little.
I think the thing we can say about Shout It Out is I think every song on it is part of the tapestry of the record, and it's important to the record. And whether every single song is a hit, worldwide smash hit, quote unquote, that's another thing. But I think they play together as one piece, that you want to listen to one and to the other and to the other and to the other.
A couple of final questions. First, you guys don't take yourselves too seriously, which is really appreciated, and so that's great. And are you guys all getting along? Like, do you get along as brothers or as a band? I mean, the ebbs and flows.
The truth is, we really like each other. I mean, we do enjoy one another's company, but we're also really different. I mean, we have very, very different approaches to life. I mean, just the things we do, but at the center of all of it, and it is a very rare thing, we still do have a dynamic making music together, making art together that is special, and it's really hard to recreate, and that hasn't died, it's still alive. And honestly, I think part of that is that for me, I think it's the fact that we still have a lot of things we haven't done yet. I think, and that's probably what keeps us kind of going forward.
I think the hardest thing over the years is just, as you said, the difference in personality and kind of difference in getting to the same goal. We'll often say, we all kind of know that we want to get to that island. It's just, we're all kind of taking different routes. Somebody's on a hang glider, somebody's on a speedboat, somebody's on a jet ski or whatever. But we're all trying to get there. It's just,
somebody's on a pontoon boat fishing.
I'll be there in a minute, guys. Don't worry. And then the guy on the jet ski's going around the guy on the pontoon boat, taunting him, going, dude, stop fishing.
This metaphor just got really deep.
I think one thing that is true, it's harder to be in this band with every passing year, because as you grow older and as more complications in life, more things you want to be a part of, more things you want to do. We're all married with kids, and sort of you could spend every hour of every day just doing things with your kids or with your wife or with it, so to find this time to be everything is hard. But I think what it does tell you about yourself is when you find that you miss the moments, and you find that it's that much harder to get there with the music sometimes, but it's also that much more rewarding, and you desire it more because you are fighting for it.
Final question. What advice do you have for kids coming up now in the business who, don't have the whole huge infrastructure of the machine anymore, or they have a machine that's different? I mean, you're on tour now with Carly Rae, who is going to be part of a different kind of machine, right?
Sure. She's in a new machine. I mean, to be honest, there's always been a machine, and there always will be some version of kind of the big cogs and an opportunity to potentially be a part of that. When we were around, it was the end of an era where plastic was still selling. MTV still played music videos. Radio stations still had somewhat control of their own station versus multiple stations.
And a wider, more diverse playlist in general.
But that was that era, and that had other limitations. I mean, that at that time, you could only get to people through a label or through a radio station. Now, there's a million options, but there's also too many options. So honestly, to me, the advice is, it goes back to the very same thing that every artist in history has ever had to do, which is start by figuring out what it is you do. Like, really figure it out. Because the minute you put yourself in front of other people, they're going to try. It's not about like the Svengali trying to steer you. It's more just everybody is going to come up with their version of what you are.
Right.
And you've got to be able to sell that thing, that part of you, with complete and total conviction to a point of just ad nauseum, and still like it.
Right.
You know, and so I think you got to start by really knowing what you are and knowing what you want to do. And then, honestly, for today, you have to decide that you're not, you know, an aloof artist. You have to decide that you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you are a business owner, and instead of starting Apple Computers, you started Band X.
Right.
And you need to live that. You know, you need to embrace it, and because all of the pieces around you, if you don't grab them and if you don't make them yours, then someone else will. And so I just kind of saying, hey, from the beginning, that's me.
And that's also to say, you got to be genuine about it too. I mean, because people, especially these days, they sniff out a fake pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was relatively easy to sniff out a fake, you know, before. It's a lot easier to sniff out a fake these days because there's just so many opportunities to kind of catch you with your guard down.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that you got to be ultimately, genuinely that artist, whoever you are, loud and proud, and do whatever it is that you do as often and as loud as you possibly can, you know?
Yeah, that's great.
I think one thing you see in a lot of young artists, especially sort of the way all the American Idols and X Factors and The Voice and all these TV shows and multimedia things is people sort of expecting this big red button in a different way than they were before.
I'm going to call up the guy with the cigar and he's going to make me a successful
I'm going to make a YouTube
guy.
video and then I'm going to be a millionaire
Right.
and I'll be successful. And I think what so many of those young artists don't do is they don't take the time to actually master a craft. There's that whole thing about 10,000 hours of practice to master your craft. And I think
We're supposed to be really experts at this point.
I think that's really important. The idea that you spend the time, that doesn't mean that every time you're on stage, you're not hoping that guy out in the audience is gonna, sign you, or that you're gonna, play to 50,000 people. It's just that the time to say, I am going to study and I am going to practice and I am going to write 1,000 songs and I am going to, I think that's really important. That's the road of discovering yourself. And that's how you get there. You don't get there by sitting with a notepad and going, who am I? Well, let's answer these 40 questions and then I'll go on eHarmony and find my soulmate. You know what I mean? Like, the process is the shows that you play in the bars, in the clubs, at the fairs, at the school,
when it's hard.
It's the songs you write that teach you who you are.
Right.
And it's always listen to Yoda.
Yeah.
There is no try.
Right. Just do.
There's just do it.
Yeah.
There is no try.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for making great music all of these
Thank
years,
you.
and thanks for coming in, and thanks for shouting it out. It's a great record.
Thanks so much.
Nice.